Hey guys, OG here, and welcome back to episode 2 of Fixing Your Favorites, a series where we take some less than stellar Pokemon and try and catch them up to the current generation's level of power creep, so that they can compete with Pokemon at the top, like Dragapult and Landorus T. Today we'll be looking at 5 different Pokemon, all of which were taken from the comment section from last episode. So go ahead and drop a comment on a Pokemon you'd like to see me attempt to buff and make stronger. And while you're down there, you might as well drop a like and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 2,000 subs, and I'd really appreciate if you help us out along that goal. We upload plenty of competitive Pokemon content, discussions, draft league battles, things like that, so be sure to stick around before Scarlet and Violet drop. Alrighty, let's do this. This first Pokemon we're going to be buffing might be surprising to some of you. In fact, it's not bad at all. However, it's definitely the worst Pokemon in its category. Goodra just needs a buff. If you look at any other pseudo legendary and compare it to Goodra, there's a huge gap between the two. For this fix, I won't be changing Goodra's base stat total, as the 600 BST is one of the things that makes pseudo legendary Pokemon, well, a pseudo legendary Pokemon. Instead, we'll be changing just about everything else. First off, we'll start with its ability. Goodra has some decent abilities as is. Sap Sipper provides a great immunity, which is always solid, and Hydration makes it a solid, more defensive Rain Abuser. Gooey can also provide some good speed control. But remember, we're trying to make Goodra rise up to the level of Dragapult and Garchomp in viability. That means replacing Hydration on our hypothetical Goodra and giving it the best ability in the game, Regenerator. Thematically, it still makes sense, I think. I don't know. I'll be honest, I just googled slugs and saw if they could regenerate, and I saw an article with it. Research. This, alongside Goodra's insane Spadessa and the Assault Vest, would make it one of, if not the best special walls in the game. It can now pivot in and out freely without the risk of being worn down by hazards and attacks, getting that sweet 33% each time it switches out. I think this great ability wouldn't be super overwhelming, as Goodra also lacks reliable one-turn recovery outside of resting in the rain, one of its biggest downsides. I would never say give it softball or slack off, but I never said anything about 2-turn recovery. For my next Goodra buff, I propose in giving it Wish. Popular Pokemon ROM hack Radical Red also gave Goodra this buff, and I love the idea, giving it even more opportunities to keep itself healthy, as well as to continue to take hits and support its teammates. This Wish buff, alongside Regenerator, will make Goodra a staple on more balanced and stall-oriented builds. But obviously, it keeps great offensive potential. I also thought about giving Goodra the secondary typing of Poison, but I really couldn't decide if I liked the pure Dragon typing more. They both have their upsides and flaws, and I just couldn't decide on the objective better one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next up, we head off to the Hoenn region and fix this gross little puppet guy. Shiftry. We're fixing Shiftry. Shiftry has a great base for us to work with. It has a solid offensive typing and great coverage overall. This is especially true when you consider this thing has access to Chlorophyll. This should make it a solid Sun Sweeper and a cool alternative to Venusaur, right? Wrong. It's just so meh. Whether it be a mediocre speed stat of 80 or its very average attacking stats of 190, it's just so painfully average. So my fix for Shiftry is a simple one. Just a nice little stat buff. I like to buff its speed to a nice base 95, allowing it to function outside of Sun just a bit better. Mainly though, I want to buff its attacking stats to 120 attack and 110 special attack. This, on top of a Life Orb with a Chlorophyll boost, would make this thing a menace. And you better not let it boost a Growth in the Sun or a Swords Dance / Nasty Plot outside of the Sun. This is all Shiftry needs to compete or maybe even overtake Venusaur for a spot on your Sun team. Third, we have a Pokemon who's finally making its way back into a regional dex for the first time since Generation 2 in Venomoth. This is actually a Pokemon I personally really enjoy using. Tinted Leads plus Quiver Dance can be a great win condition in some matchups, and this was especially true in Generation 7 with Z-Moves. Z-Moves disappearing from the game did make Veno's damage output much less threatening though. My proposal for a buff for this little moth guy would be a nice stat increase. I would first boost its special attack from 90 up to base 110. This jump would really help him breaking through would-be checks even more. For example, Tinted Lens plus 1 Bug Buzz goes from a miss 2-hit KO on Spadef Scizor to an 80% to 2-hit KO without rocks. The calc should be up on the screen as well. I'd also love to see it get a slight defense boost, maybe just a 10 stat increase in each of its stats to give it more setup opportunities. 60 defense and 75 Spadef just isn't cutting it. With these buffs and good hazard support, Venomoth can make a great endgame sweeper. For number 4, we have what I think might quite literally be the most boring Pokemon design of all time, Dewgong. Let's at least make it less forgettable competitively. The changes I had in mind for Dewgong was a two-parter, and they kind of play into each other, so stick with me for a bit. First, I'd like to add a few new moves to its move pool. The first and most important is Flip Turn. First off, it makes sense thematically. Second, momentum grabbing capabilities are always great, and great in particular for the ability change I have in mind. You'll see. I would also love to see it get Freeze Dry and Scald, two pieces that every ice and water type needs in its arsenal. Freeze Dry makes as much sense as Flip Turn does. I don't have to justify that one. I get why other water ice mons don't get Scald though. You know, being part ice. But it's just such a detrimental trait to not have Scald as a water type, and I really feel like we need to make an exception for our pal here. Lastly is its new ability, Snow Warning. The reason I think Snow Warning would be so good on our hypothetical Dewgong is the addition of Flip Turn that we added earlier. This would differentiate it from every other Hail Setter in the sense that it would be able to grab momentum into the Hail Sweeper, whether it be Arctozolt or maybe an Alolan Sandslash. Other Hail Setters lack this momentum grabbing option and therefore struggle positioning their sweepers. I legitimately think the combination of Snow Warning plus Flip Turn would make Dewgong the premier Hail Setter. Or at least it would compete with Alolan Ninetales. Look at the difference between something like Pelipper and Politoed. The reason Pelipper is so much better is because of its access to U-Turn. Heck, give Dewgong Aurora Veil and it becomes objectively better than Ninetales then. Last up, we have Ninjask. It's insanely fast and has access to some really cool tools like Swords Dance, First Impression, U-Turn, and more. For this one, I have a pretty cool idea. For those of you who somehow don't know, Generation 8 introduced the moves Vicious Rend and Bolt Beak as signature options to the fossils of the generation. These moves are base 85 in power, but have the added effect of doubling their power when the user attacks first. My proposition for Ninjask is to give it its own version of Vicious Rend, but instead it's a stab flying type move. Now it can finally take advantage of that insane speed stat that it has. This, along a slight attack buff to 100 base attack, and access to a move like Brick Break that hits rocks and steels, and this guy can be a bona fide endgame threat. You would be surprised how much a single move can carry a Pokemon. Looking at you, Dracovish. And that is our second episode. Let me know what you guys think of the buffs that I came up with. I think a couple of them were a little bit more boring, like the Venomoth one was just a base stat increase, and that one's kind of boring, but I think the other one, and same thing with the Shiftry, but I think the other three I came up with some pretty cool ideas, and, you know, I had some help from the goons, obviously. I think Jesse and Ant helped me out a ton with these. So, thank you to them. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, if you enjoyed, please drop a sub to the channel. I would really appreciate it a ton. And, yeah, with that being said, I will see you guys in the next one. Later.